Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. Sharing is caring. And so don't forget to share. Check out my shirt. Holy with a hint of hood. Pray with me, don't play with me. I am definitely holy. I try to be a Christian. I try to live right and do the right things. But I do have a past, and um I'm a little hood, but that's okay. That's fine. We all got our own little twerk, so it's no big deal. But anyway, I'm in the kitchen getting ready to prepare some food, and I'm gonna make it based off of. I went to the store and bought some never before seen beef neck bones. If you know what they are, shout out to you. I've never heard them. I know all about pork neck bones, turkey necks, everything, but I've never heard of beef neck bones. So I purchased them just to have something different. Um, and of course, to my faithful subscribers who watch all my videos, welcome back. I love and appreciate y'all. So anyway, I'm washing it so I can saute it in the skillet before I put it in the oven. I've never made it like I said before, so I googled a couple recipes saying that you have to let it slow cook or it won't be tender. And I got a pack of oxtails. Nope, you can't have none because they cost too much. I ain't even sharing with my husband and my son. Matter of fact, I ain't gonna even let them know they in there. So I got me some wine, just a little bit, and wanted to show you the little. Not sure if you're familiar with this, but it's a cork that you can buy that you can put back in your wine. If you like me, you only sip a little bit and put it back up. Keep it fresh without you having to try to get the cork back down in it. So it's a handy dandy little tool. My husband picked it up for me. It was a 2-pack. I think it's like, if you in Texas, it was Expex and Total Wines, places like that or whatever. So anyway, I got these little these beef neck bone things from HEB, which is in Texas. So if you're not familiar with HEB, it can't be in your hometown. It's a big deal out here. So I'm just gonna get these. See, this how these beef neck bones look. If you done cook regular pork neck bones, you know they look totally different than this. So we shall see. I hate the smell of beef. I just can't stand it. I cook it, but I can't stand it. So anyway, if you've seen the title on my video, then you know what we here to talk about. And so we just gonna get right into it. I got a little canola oil heating up in my skillet for these. Brown them on both sides before I throw them in the oven. But forgiveness is so important. It's so important, especially I think some of the overdue forgiveness is for parents. Because we have such a high expectation for parents. Like we feel like it's so much they should do, it's so much they should get right, it's so much they shouldn't get wrong. And sometimes it simply comes down to people just don't know no better. When I knew I was gonna talk to y'all about this video, I looked up. Y'all done heard of books like Math for Dummies, English for Dummies, so on and so forth. I'm using some seasoned salt. I just sprinkle some seasoned salt. I'm probably gonna use a little liquid smoke. Some garlic powder. Garlic powder is good for everything. So I'm gonna. So what we come to realize, I think, sometimes with parents is we want them to do things a certain way, and sometimes we carry around so much resentment because we feel like they shoulda, coulda done better. And granted, a lot of times that is the case. But not forgiving them ain't gonna change the situation. They still didn't do better. And it ain't necessarily that they could have done better. Some people, they just can't. I think what we forget to realize is generational curses are real, y'all. Strongholds are real. So sometimes things are passed down from generation to generation that people don't even acknowledge as an issue because it's the norm. So how can you tell somebody if something is wrong with what they come to know as the norm? You know, you can't really tell anybody that, because it's like, how you gonna tell me it's wrong and this is what my mama did and this is what my dad did? And even for the parents who ain't there, like, I hear you saying it's wrong and I should do better, but my daddy went there, my mama went there. So instead of us taking that thing and making the most by trying to be better parents, we sometimes allow it to lead us and cause generational hurt, generational brokenness and damage. And so, you know, sometimes you have to just extend some grace to your parents and know that first and foremost, God is intentional. You know, He's very intentional. So as much as we don't understand some things, He truly do look out for us. He look out for us in a way that our blood and biological parents don't, because they just don't have the capability, no matter how good they are. So I'll tell you my own story, okay? My sister dad raised me. When him and my mom got together, I was a little girl. And what I remember is him and my mom not being together while I was still a little girl. So the relationship that we built wasn't built over these 10, 15 years, and I was a teenager. So when he left, he still treated me like his child because he had already been in my life for 10, 15 years. That was not the case. I know I was young. I don't know how young, but I know I was young. And from the time that him and my mom was no longer together, when he picked up his daughter, my sister, he always picked me up too. Always picked me up. And so I never knew what it was to not have a dad, because my sister dad was my dad, you know. And I could walk around and be mad at my biological father for not being there, but God was gracious and gave me a good life. Even me and my mama didn't have the closest relationship coming up, you know. Like a lot of families don't know what it is to give you love and to spend time with you and to let you be vocal and hear your voice and, you know, stuff like that, because it's so much that, especially in the black families, I can't really speak for any other families, but in the black family, is kids have not been taught to have a voice. You know, it's what I say, not what I do, which contradicts the God that I serve, which is the father of my mother and my father. And if he said it, then it's true, because he's over everything. And God sent his son to live as an example so that we would know what to do. And in that example, he lived a life for us to strive to be more like Christ. So if you're telling me as your child to not do as you do, but do what you say, that's confusing and it's conflicting. But that's what a lot of black homes, and a lot of black homes have you not talking about things that are truly issues, which then becomes another issue, because now you weighed down with all of this stuff that you can't honestly tell nobody is a problem, you know. So we have all of these things, y'all, that we have endured, unfortunately, just by trial and error. Not necessarily that our parents was just horrible, or some parents was. I'm not gonna, you know, take that from nobody. But in my case, my parents wasn't just horrible, but it wasn't, the love wasn't there that should have been there. You know, my mom, she didn't give hugs and kisses and tell us we were beautiful, you know, and really sit down and teach us how to value ourselves and how to think for ourselves when it came to making decisions on who we date. It was just no or yes, because I said so, you know. And a lot of times we become grown and then we get mad because we're like, if you just would have, then maybe I would have. So you walk around with all this unforgiveness, but it ain't benefiting you nothing. It's not benefiting you a thing. And it spills over into even raising your own kids because you have a chip on your shoulder. So, you know, even though my biological father wasn't there, I knew who he was. And I knew who he was because his sister had boys. So she would come and get me as her little girl because she didn't have a daughter. she come get me, shop, do stuff like that. And I knew who my daddy was. He'd come around, so on and so forth. But he never was intentional about being in my life. And that's fine. God blessed me with my sister's dad who showed up for me. So with that being the case, as I got older, I didn't know, much about what he was. My aunt ended up dying, so that kind of put a disconnect between me and my daddy's side of the family, because the one person who was the connector was no longer here or whatever. So years goes by, and I have years goes by, I haven't heard from my daddy, whatever. His family has always stayed in the same area, but my mom didn't take me out there, so eventually I'm at high school and I'm in class with a boy, and he comes and get me out of class. And I loved him. He was a good friend of mine. Class clown, always, there for the cut up. And so he comes to get me out of class. And I'm like, well, what you wrong? So he said, I called my mama and my stepdaddy up here because you look so much like my stepdad. And I'm like, what? He was like, man, I kid you not, you look just like my stepdaddy. So I'm like, okay, all right. Go downstairs to the office. It's my dad. My dad and his wife downstairs at the office came to see me because his wife's son called and said, you gotta come see this girl. She looked just like your husband, my stepdad, or what have you. So we reconnected, but it wasn't, nothing long, because they ended up moving to another state. So it wasn't nothing for long, but we got to reconnect and talk, and I realized how much I look like him and so on and so forth, and it was just crazy, but in that moment I didn't feel like I had been cheated out of something. I didn't feel like God had done me a disservice by him not being in my life. I didn't feel this grudge on I didn't have all these unanswered questions. I just didn't. And I know I'm different. I know everybody is different. But it's just I didn't have it. I just felt like I had a good life. My mom had always took great care of us. We always had food on the table. When my sister dad shopped for her for the holidays and birthdays and everything, he shopped for me. When we had field trips and so on, when he come and bring you snacks galore, you had snacks for everybody on the bus. If my sister was going on a field trip, he bought us snacks if I was going on a field trip. I need to be disciplined. My mama called my sister daddy. And so I had somebody in my life. So I didn't really carry around this level of anger of being mad at him for not being there, So anyway, y'all look. So that's them beef neck bones. I'm finna put a little water in here and probably throw some dill seasoning. Woo, y'all like dill. It's salty if you use too much, but it's good. So I ain't gonna use a whole lot. So anyway, life goes on, and I don't get to talk to them for a while, but I'm just living my life and, moving on, doing my own thing. And eventually we get back in contact again, and I find out that they're living in California or whatever. And we talk sometimes here and there, but nothing for real, because, the relationship hadn't been built or whatever. So we ain't talk a lot, but we talk from time to time, but we always managed to lose contact. Maybe it was because he didn't feel like it was a requirement to really put in that energy. I was grown, I was older. Maybe he didn't know how I felt about him, and I didn't feel the need because I had a daddy. I wasn't looking for nothing or missing nothing. By this time, I got my own family, so I got other things to focus on. And with that being the case, my dad hadn't had kids with his wife. So I had a sister and a brother on my dad's side that, he had raised. They got to spend time with him. And there's a lot of us walking around angry about stuff like that too. Like, you was there for them, but you weren't there for me. And you got to live a good life with daddy. And I had to live in the projects and so on and so forth. And, all of this stuff that we internalize without truly knowing the story, And so I didn't have no bad feelings. They my sisters. They his children. I was with my mama. And so I could have just been angry, resentful, but it wasn't gonna do me no good. It was not gonna do me any good. So years passed. Somehow me and my dad have been talking, but not really, but we've been talking, and I found myself going through a divorce in 2010. And I was working, and I felt led by the Holy Spirit to go to California, which is where my daddy was, and my sister and brother, and my daddy's wife. And I felt led, so I'm just going to put foil on this, y'all, and put it in the oven, or what have you. So I wanted to, so I just was like, I got my family together. Keep in mind, it's a man that ain't been in my life. I don't even really know if it's worth it. I don't even know how, they gonna feel about me. So, me and my children, we talked to my dad and we decided we're gonna go out there. We're gonna drive to California, all the way to California, to be with strange people. Strange in the sense of we don't know them no more than they know us, outside of the fact that we are family. And the crazy thing about my kids is they trust me in regards to how I handle people. And so the fact that I handled my daddy a certain way, it took nothing for my children to acknowledge him as granddaddy. And that's because I treated him like daddy. All the past, I can't even really say hurt, but possibly maybe some disappointment of not really knowing the reason I'm the way I am, because this DNA part of me, I don't really know. So as I've gotten older, I've become more curious about me and different things and why I do certain things, and the little pointy nose. And I could have swear to you when I met my grandmother that she's Indian. She looks like an Indian. And so I'm like, I've been wanting to know my history. So I think the biggest thing probably would have been that part. Just not knowing why I'm the way I am, because I am a combination of my mom and my dad. Crazy thing with that being said, my daddy, my sister's dad, my daddy, say I acted more like him than my sister, which was crazy, but that's just how intentional God is. He said I acted more like him than his blood daughter, and it's just crazy. But anyway, I talked to my kids about going to California. I talked to my family, telling them I don't know if this is a permanent thing. I don't know if this is a temporary thing. But I want to be obedient to the Spirit, because I just feel like I'm being led to go to California. So I'm going through a divorce, and I'm like, maybe it's me just want to get away, but that wouldn't make sense. I could have went anywhere, because I don't know these people. Why choose to go that far, drive that far, as if we best friends and I know we're going to have a good time, right? So it had to be the Holy Spirit. So at that time, I tell my supervisor, I'm gonna turn in my notice, because I feel like I'm being led to go to California and I don't know what's gonna happen. And she said, I hold your job for you until God tell you what's next. When God telling you to do something, He will put all the right people into place. I'm telling you, because if it would have been another supervisor who God didn't ordain to be there, it would probably been a whole different thing. So anyway, I go out to California. I drive, y'all, just drive. Get out there. Had the best time of my life. And I found out from my brother and sister that they were scared that I was going to show up judging them, feeling like, looking down my nose at them like, you got to be raised with daddy. And I don't like you. You know what I'm saying? They told me that's what they thought I was going to show up as. And I was like, it ain't even crossed my mind. Like, it hadn't even crossed my mind to feel no type of way about them. But then when I get in, and you never know what another person has been through. You never know. And if I would have showed up with a nasty attitude, mad at them, full of unforgiveness, I would have robbed all of us of an experience. You know what I mean? So my sister and them had confided in me and told me that they were happy that I didn't come there with that mindset because life had been hard, y'all. Like my dad had been on drugs for years. They had been homeless multiple times in California, slept in cars, and I never knew that life. I never knew that life. My mom, we have always had somewhere to stay. Never had lights turned off, except one time my mama's husband was tripping and got turned off, and he quickly figured out that was a bad idea. But anyway, never, I ain't never had to worry about where my next meal was gonna come from. I ain't never have to worry about sleeping in a car and somebody breaking in on I never. And I was so grateful to God that when I showed up, I didn't show up with this sense of entitlement. That's it. That is it. That is it. That is it. Entitlement, y'all, will rob you of an experience. Showing up with a sense of somebody owes you something. Somebody has done you a disservice because it didn't go the way you think it should have went. Only to find out that it was by the grace of God that it went that way. You know what I mean? Like, only by the grace of God it went that way. Because now my testimony is different. Lord knows I've had my share. Lord knows I've had my struggles. I became a mom at 15. I'm also standing here confessing to you that my mom was a loving and affectionate. My mom was a very strong female. So as a woman who was trying to do things Christ's way, I had to learn what it was to tame it down, to submit and serve my husband wholeheartedly, not grudgingly. Come on. But you can't identify with everybody's situation, but everybody got a situation. Okay? So when they told me, my heart broke. Because at this time, my sister and them like young. Keep in mind, this is 2022. So that was like 12 years ago. And I am the oldest. And so I'm 40. And it's a nice little age gap. So my sister and them were super independent, like catching buses and hanging out and stuff, and stuff my mama wasn't even having, And I'm like, Jesus, they out here like grown folks, but they had to learn what it was to survive because of the life they was exposed to, because they was raised by my father. Stop walking around with so much unforgiveness that you might miss why life is the way it is. You know what I'm saying? Even when I met my husband, it was some things that his dad had been in his life. And he had the biggest chip on his shoulder that I thank God, after fasting and us talking about, that he was able to get through. And when he got a call and his dad was at the hospital, he wanted to be there. And when he got a call and said that something else was going on with his father, he wanted to be there. When his dad didn't want to listen, that he might get on the phone and say, hey, get it together. Because it was a love for him that was being blocked by this resentment about what his dad didn't do. But then when we began to dig and realize that addiction to alcohol dictated what he did and didn't do, how can you fully hold somebody accountable for something that they're bound by? Addiction is real. And what sense and how is it helping him to be loving and affectionate and everything he needs to be when he is so resentful of what his father done? So we had to work through all of that. And, it helped him to see, I just need to be gracious. I just need to understand I don't know his story, And so I prayed that watching this video, you would care more about knowing the story. And even if you don't, to extend the same grace and forgiveness that God extends to us, and that your children are going to have to extend to you. My kids are going to have to extend to me, probably have extended to me, because I've fallen short. I've did some things that I shouldn't have done, or I've did some things I should have did and they didn't agree with, and having to realize now, oh, that was why. So you just never know. But even if I never knew what I just shared with y'all, extending him grace and forgiveness is for me. And it's also to open that door for the opportunity for us to have a relationship that he may want to have, that I would shut out and reject based off of expectation, you know. And so when I was in California, I had been married now, but when I was in California, my dad was the first man who prioritized me as a woman. Now, my kid's father, my husband, he did good with providing financially. He was faithful. You know, I never had to worry about a car, this, that, and other, stuff like that. But my dad would wake me up to have breakfast with me before my kids got up. Because my daddy was teaching me you need time for yourself and somebody to focus on you before you start focusing on everybody else. And so that was the first time in my life my daddy loved to cook. My daddy is a servant heart. My daddy loves God. He believed in prayer. And he can have a deep conversation with you. And I began to find out why I'm the way I am. I'm a servant heart. I love to cook. I love to take care of people. I love to talk about God. I'm spiritual. Don't even know how I got to be there, but God deposited that at 13 years old. That's a story for another day. But I would have robbed myself of even learning exactly why I do some of the things I do. I'm like my dad. I'm like my dad. My dad will cook you a whole meal, fix you a plate, and tell you to come eat. You know, and after we would have our time, he'll go and get my kids and say, hey, y'all get up, I'm gonna feed the kids, you sit down and you rest, and you know, you just do what you want to do, and I'm gonna take care of them right now. Because even in my marriage, I didn't have that with my husband. I took care of the kids. He worked a lot, and I took care of the kids. But he was my daddy. Even in that moment, taught me what I wanted in a man, in my next husband. You know, I wanted somebody who would take the time to say, let me pour into you and take care of you before you pour into everything else. And I would have robbed myself of that experience being grudge hardy, because my life, I'm still here. I ain't strung out on drugs. I'm in my right mind. So he wasn't there, but God stepped in and intervened. And you know, sometimes we try to get people to make sense of the things that hurt us, but I looked up the word dummy and I looked up the word stupid. And stupid is a lack of intelligence. Okay? So stupid is simply a lack of intelligence to comprehend. So it ain't necessarily what I tell you may go right over your head, especially if you're addicted to something, especially if you got strongholds and you can't see clearly. So when you may be trying to get somebody to understand something, they just may not be able to understand it. So you're going to stay mad at your parents. You're going to hate them until they die. You ain't going to show up because you're like, you ain't there for me. And when I'm trying to tell you how you hurt me, you don't get it, because hurt people sometimes just don't get they hurting other people. They just don't. And so when you're trying to get them to make sense of your pain, sometimes it's hard. And sometimes you have to be able to say, I forgive them for they know not what they do. Come on, God. That's a word. I forgive you though you know, for you know not what you do or what you have done. Which means I forgive you and I extend this grace to you because you don't even have the knowledge or the comprehension to understand. And that is okay. Because my Father in heaven understands, and he's here, and he's going to make all well one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? So y'all, we have to learn to forgive our parents. Forgive them, extend them some grace, love on them if they still here. You know, and you may not ever have the best relationship. Me and my mom don't have the best relationship. We talk all the time, you know, birthdays and holidays, we get together, send each other gifts, stuff like that. But because we didn't develop a personal relationship as mom and daughter, we don't have that super personal relationship as mom and daughter in my adult life, which is a relationship I fought hard to build with my own girls and my boys, because I know I didn't get it. And when you recognize what you don't get, you have the ability to break generational curses and create something different for your family. And so I choose, keyword y'all, is you choose what you will carry with you and how you will let it affect you. Because whether you believe it or not, if you pass it down to your children, they're going to pass it down to their children. And I thank God that my kids were able to accept my daddy as a granddad without feeling like, he ain't my granddad. He wasn't even there for my mama. I'd have heard how he ain't never showed up, ain't never done nothing for her. Ooh, none of that. My dad, when I was in California, took good care of me. Made me feel like a queen when I was there. And I appreciate him for that. I got to spend time with my sisters and brothers, got to learn them. And my sister can walk in heels like any bad chick. You hear me? Her sister couldn't, but that girl could walk from here to the moon in some heels. And my brother was just so caring and so independent and so nice and so gracious. And I'm just like, man, this is my family. It's my family. And when my daddy moved back to Birmingham, Alabama, where I'm from, if I needed my car fixed, when he would come to the house and spend a couple of nights with us, he would cook, he would walk the kids to the bus stop, he would hang out and watch TV with us. You know, when I moved about my house, he came and put my TV on the wall, just whatever he could do for me. So he hadn't done a whole lot of nothing for me financially, but what he has done since I have given him the room to come back into my life has made a world of difference for our relationship, and I greatly appreciate it. You know, he wasn't there when I got married the first time, and he chose not to be there the second time because I refused to not let him have that moment without sharing it with my sister dad. Gracious, I extended it and told him I wanted him to be there, even though he hadn't been there my whole life. If I was blessed that he was still alive, I wanted him to share and walk me down the aisle with my sister father. But he didn't want to, so he didn't show up. And that was fine. I forgave him for it, and my sister dad walked me all the way down the aisle. It was fine. But, and I forgave him because we still talk to this day. I was over his house a couple of weeks ago when I was in Birmingham. So it's all fine, but he had to come back to me and say he was sorry that he didn't take advantage of that opportunity. So sometimes just extending grace and showing people love, God do the conviction. You hear what I mean? God will do the conviction. You don't have to being hateful, being resentful, being mean. It ain't gonna make them get it. But love would do what other things can't. Forgiveness will do for you what other things can't. And so I just pray that we will be gracious, y'all. Saying, God, give me the strength to forgive and extend grace to my parents for all their imperfections, for the parent that was there that wasn't there, for the parent that tried, for the parent that didn't try. God, help me to forgive that parent and move forward in my life so that when I fall short as a parent, you will forgive me. My kids will forgive me. When I don't always get it right, or when I don't always handle things to the best that I could have, or when I get frustrated and I say things that I shouldn't have said, that I can't take back, and I scar my child's heart in some way, and they forgive me and you forgive me, I want that. And I know the only way, because the word says to be forgiven, you must forgive. You know, and to love those who spitefully use you. Love those who mistreat you. Love those who slap you by turning the other cheek. You know, and we often think that it's strength in, oh, I'm mad, it's standing in that, but it's strength in humility. It's strength in humility. And so if you can be humble and allow God to do the work, even if it's on their deathbed, even if it's a letter that they wrote somewhere, you just might get that I'm sorry, I love you apology that heals something like never before. But it's hard to heal something when when there's a wall. In order to be healed, the wall has to come down so that the pieces can be put back together. You know, and you may have had an absent father who wasn't there, but prayerfully God will send you a husband who loves you and treats you with the utmost respect and teach you and love on you the way a woman should be loved on, and even teach you. I think we have gotten it so misconstrued that our husband and our wife can't truly teach us what it is to be loved properly, because we didn't get it from mama and daddy. So when a man takes care of you and you like, oh, no, he's trying to teach you this is what's supposed to happen. When a woman serves a man and he's like, man, I ain't used to that. My mama always told me, you a man, grow up, this, that, and the other. Now he got to learn what it is to be okay with somebody taking care of him and let him be vulnerable and soft and sensitive. So I pray that God will send you If your heart's desire is to be married, a spouse who feeds that thing, that lets you know, I may not have gotten it over there, but God is sending it through over here. And so as I get ready to put my oxtails on, finish sipping on my little wine, I pray that this word has blessed you tremendously. And I pray that you will forgive. Forgive yourself for all the unforgiveness you've been holding this whole time. And if God opens the door and your parent tries to right their wrong, allow them to right their wrong. Because there's nothing going to be worse than knowing they at least tried and you didn't allow it and they passed away, you know. So I pray this video bless y'all tremendously. I pray that as this channel is called Keeping It Real with Marquita, that as I'm a little bit more open and vulnerable with y'all, that y'all will really see through my life that God will get you through some things, and God can allow you and will allow you to have joy in the storm. So y'all have a blessed night. Continue to pray for me as I pray for y'all. I wish the food wasn't gonna take so long so I can tell you how it's gonna turn out. But nonetheless, do your part, because you're only responsible for you. Do your part and let God do the rest. And I pray that if your parents are still here, that God mends your broken heart, and that before it's too late, you get to mend that relationship with your mother or your father or whoever. Even with your children, your relationship between you and your child may be damaged. And there may need to be some forgiveness and some healing that needs to take place there as well. But I just pray that you would take it serious and you won't put off for today. Put off for tomorrow what you can do today, because that's what the Bible say. Don't put off for tomorrow what you can do today, because nothing is promised. So I love y'all. Continue to pray for me as I pray for y'all. And just learn to be happy with the things that you're not in control of. And you'll live a much more fulfilling life. So, good night. I love y'all. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm saying, just don't forget to subscribe. I mean, why wouldn't you? I love y'all. And don't forget the shirt. Hold it with a hint of hood. So, like 95 and then 5% hood. Or maybe a little more, but that's my business. Y'all have a good night. I love y'all.